If you've watched my channel before, you'll probably know that I currently live in a multi-generational home. If you'd like to learn more about how and why and all that stuff, I have a Q&A from a little while ago, and there's some community posts that kind of explain the situation. I don't feel like talking about it here. And since childhood for me, my parents have always been into house DIYing. I spent my childhood helping paint and cut, drill, flip furniture, all that stuff ever since I can remember. And in my opinion, making your space your own with things you made yourself is really special. And for the past about year and a half, I have just been filming the changes and the DIYs and the flips that we've been doing to this house. I didn't even know if it was going to go into a video. I didn't know if I'd intersperse it into videos, but it ended up being enough that it's its own video now. So here are all the DIYs and all the changes we've done to this house over the past couple of years that I feel like makes our house more whimsical. Okay, so first up, if you've been watching my videos over the last year, you've already seen this wallpaper change, but let me show you how we did it. So my mom and I originally put up this blue and white kind of beachy wallpaper, but our siding on the outside of this room started decomposing and started causing mold and all kinds of other problems on the inside of the walls. And you can see the panels coming apart here, so it's time for a change, which will be very easy because we used removable wallpaper. I think this is great for renting, but I also think it's great if you live in a house that you happen to own. Removable wallpaper is always the way to go if you're trying to add some personality to your walls. And plus, if you're a sensory person, this is incredibly satisfying to pull off. Once all the old wallpaper is off, and yes, the original owners had these walls painted in this very textured pattern, it's really interesting, time to add the new wallpaper. And we thought this room would look really cool with a darker wall and lighter furniture for some great contrast. And we settled on this dark blue tree motif that is just so pretty. I'm still obsessed with it a year later. On most removable wallpaper sites, you will have to measure the height and width of your walls, and they will give you the amount you need. Now for supplies, there are a few things you're going to need to do this correctly. You're going to first need an X-Acto knife for cutting the bottom and top edges, as well as around the doors and windows. Next is one of these smoother tools. I specifically like the ones with this felt tip. This helps wrinkles from happening as you are placing down the wallpaper piece. And I feel like the felted end keeps you from accidentally tearing it. It's a bit gentler on the paper. Next up is some kind of thin edge. You need this because it will keep your cuts straight as you use the X-Acto knife while serving as a guard. So you could use a ruler or one of these putty scrapers that we had. It keeps your lines clean and straight without accidentally cutting too far into your paper. Lastly, this one isn't necessary. We had never used this before, but I will say it was so helpful, and that is this laser level. You just put it away from the wall and let it project this straight line. This is especially helpful if you have very old walls like ours that are all tilted now due to age, making it harder to place them straight. But again, this isn't necessary. I've done it before without this. It just makes the process a bit faster. Also, here's what the walls look like underneath all the layers now that the wallpaper is off. Don't worry, we had the mold removed. It's all safe. It just looks really ugly. There's one skill you'll need to learn to do this, and that is pattern matching. Because of my college background, I was professionally trained on how to pattern match well, but my mom struggled a bit with this at the beginning, especially with the last wallpaper that had this very tiny pattern. So if you've never had to match things like this before, I would consider getting a larger, simpler pattern to start, more along the lines of this one, as you learn how to make everything look seamless, and then you can try harder and smaller patterns in the future. Now, because we are crazy, we tend to buy a little less than we need because the wallpaper companies do not account for door frames or windows. I would not recommend doing this, but if you really want to save some money like we did, this is how we did it. So we go through the leftover sections from each roll and try to match each smaller piece over the header of the door frame. It does not have to be perfect. We just tried our best. Then my mom and I would look through and look for small pieces that could look as if it matched for both, kind of like scrapbooking. And we would cut out those individual little leaves sleeves and placed them over the seams to make it look a little bit more seamless. This really worked well with this specific wallpaper, but we've done this several times and it always ends up working. It's just incredibly tedious. We also did a lot of rug musical chairs around this time, but because we did more to this room later on, in fact, this one that I'm showing you now doesn't even stay this way, but since we did much more to this room about, I don't know, almost a year later, let's move on to the couple of other projects we've done around the house. So way back in the day, there were TV sets that could be easily moved from room to room, like in the 60s, and I have always loved that idea. It's great for if you have guests or if you don't want to pay for another television and you want to give them a television but you don't want to pay for another television, or if you only want to buy one TV but you want the option to move it with you as you go around your house or your apartment or whatever. And then I came across this viral video where someone rigged their TV to a sturdy easel, and that looked so cool and architectural. I did not show how we got the TV to attach to the easel because honestly, I wasn't there when we did it, but I did help put the easel together. So you get to see what I did, and then I will also post down below the original tutorial if you'd like to learn how they did it, because we just went off of them. I love that this is equal parts artsy and practical. This is just such a unique piece to have in your home, but this way your television can move with you and isn't stuck mounted on a wall. Another random project was this blank wall in the kitchen. My mom has been a longtime fan of John Darien, and she finally bought a couple of his books recently, and she wanted to show off some of her favorites. So after picking out the general area we wanted to cover, that's why the paper was up, we then measured the size of our frames and started measuring and planning how they would line up. She and I went through and picked some food/plant inspired pieces because it's the kitchen, and then we used command strips to hang up all the pieces. This was such a fun addition to this kitchen, and all the vegetarian themed yet really unique pieces of art just adds so much personality to a space where there's usually not many opportunities to do that. For the last project before returning to our original blue room, I did one more removable wallpaper project. If you want your space to have more art in it but want a unique way to showcase it, may I suggest making a complete mural out of it for an entire wall. My mom found this removable wallpaper that was Botticelli's Primavera, and we had this really simple guest room where such a statement would be a perfect addition. If you're going to do a mural, I would recommend getting another simpler wallpaper under your belt before this. This takes a lot of patience with imperfect walls, especially having to maybe stretch the paper in some places or fake a join the best you can, while also having an eye for where everything will meet since it's not a repeating pattern. I had to redo several of these panels more than once, but this ended up looking so cool. I will sometimes just walk into this room just to look at this mural. It was so worth the bit of pain I had to go through. And it's finally time to return to the blue room with our final project for this video. We are flipping these old leather chairs that we got for free. Way back in the day, my dad had an office and the woman he bought it from didn't want these chairs anymore. My parents were gonna give them away, but I saved them because I knew they had great bones. But these were the worst to take apart. There were a million studs and then under that, a million more staples. And if you're taking apart a chair like this, try to keep each fabric piece intact because you're gonna need them. I put this piece on my pattern paper, traced it as accurately as I could, found the center line, and cut it out with an added seam allowance. Originally, my mom wanted a separate piece for the seat and the band that goes along the front, as many chairs have. I convinced her to make all of that one piece, so you see me here adding that length all the way around. I feel like having a separate band requires too much precision for a bunch of amateurs, so making it where you only have to pull it under the chair is much easier. So I was sick when my mom went to pick out the fabric at the fabric store, and she came back with something that if I had been there, I would have told her not to get, which is a fabric with a large singular stripe down the middle. This was a bit tougher than just a blank color or a small ditzy pattern because it had to match all the way around the chair, and you had to staple it equally as you go along so that the stripe stays straight across the length of the fabric. So this required a lot more precision than other options, but it was worth it. It turned out beautiful. On the seat, since we didn't have this band, instead we added this really pretty box pleat at the front corners to account for the ease. After stapling everything down that was out of view, for the areas that were visible, we had to do a million of these tacks to keep it down. This also took another million years. I don't ever want to look at another furniture tack ever again. But after adding the bottom flap onto each chair, it is time to show you the final result for this room, at least so far. Last minute, we decided to add this old family church pew that was our family's in their original parish from generations ago that we stripped the original wood. Eventually, we want to fill this with books and have this be somewhat of a library room. We also want to add curtains at some point and refinish the table, but for now, this room looks absolutely adorable, and I love it. I was actually going to go back to this room, which was where I was doing a lot of my sewing videos for this past year, but I ended up loving that blue room so much, and I was sewing in it last year. I think I've fallen in love with it, so I think I'm going to stay in there for a while. Also, there's just a huge table. I hope that maybe I gave you guys some inspiration for how to change your own spaces in ways that I feel like are easy to change or are very cheap and affordable or easy. I just hope it gave you some inspiration to add to your own space. I really love everything. I think it was a labor of love, but that's going to be it for me this week. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Be sure to subscribe if you'd like to see more from me in the future. And I hope to see you back here next time. Bye.